What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the video, and we're going to talk about one of the most important things to know about progression here in Capybara Go, and it's really min-maxing these specific stats. It's going to massively help you out in your chapters, as well as just in general a lot of other places that are going to really do a ton of damage without you actually making sure you have this stat maximized. What are we talking about? Damage reduction. Damage reduction is the key, but there is a very specific way damage reduction works, and how it stacks up and where you're going to want it / how much you need is really important to know. So how does damage reduction work? Well, one thing you have to consider is when you start to get later and later into chapters, even 1% of damage reduction is super important. Think of it this way. If, let's say, you get super late into, the chapters and you've got a monster with, let's just say 1 billion attack power. Okay. Well, we have, let's say, 90% damage reduction. Suddenly, we are getting hit for 100 million damage. But if you have 91% damage reduction, you're getting hit for 90 million damage. That is a difference of 10 million damage. Just as an example, there is all sorts of other kind of factors in association with that, but that just goes to show you how difficult it is to really progress without actually capping out on your damage reduction. Even a matter of a couple of percent can really make a difference. So how is this calculated? How do we know how much damage reduction we need? Well, as I've said in a lot of my videos, fortunately, other people have done the math for us and actually tested it out. So first off, we have damage reduction, and then we have basic attack damage reduction and skill damage reduction as the three main ones you need to consider. This is mainly for chapters. You're really not going to be hit with, combos all that often. You're not going to be hit for counters all that often. You're not going to be hit with pets all that often. Like, that just doesn't happen. Okay, and then you can also go with elemental damage reduction, but that can be very specific and it depends on the boss. So yes, you can kind of try to get various different things to help you reduce your damage, but the three I want to focus on are basic, skill, and just overall damage reduction, because these are going to be the most universally powerful tools. So if we look at the damage reduction stat, the way this works is our total basic attack damage reduction is going to be our damage reduction plus our basic attack damage reduction. That's it. It's just damage reduction plus basic attack damage reduction. So in this case, I have 2% damage reduction plus 152%. I'm at 154%. For skill damage reduction, it is exactly the same. Damage reduction plus skill damage reduction. There's no percentage based kind of situation going on here. There's no like, okay, I have 2% damage reduction and then it's 152% of the remaining 98%, etc., etc. It is just an addition. Now you might be thinking, okay, well, you have way over 100%. Does that really matter? Well, yes, because there are a lot of things in the chapter that are going to bypass a little bit of damage reduction. So you actually need more than 100% when you get to later stages in order to actually truly cap out on the value of damage reduction. So how much should I be running and where do I get it? Well, first off, I want to talk about where you get it. And it really comes from your pets. This is really where you get most of it. There's a couple of other ways, but one of the things you really want to make sure is when you're leveling up and when you're building out your pets, especially when you're building up this build level, because this goes way higher and you'll start to get access to like mythic stats and immortal stats and arcana stats. So you don't really need to be min-maxing your pet builds. What you're going to be looking for when you're progressing is basic attack damage reduction, skill damage reduction, things like global attack, big general bonuses that are going to help you no matter what. So you're not just using a bunch of resources like Everstones to try to min-max your build. That's for much later on in the game. And so you can see here on my three pets that I'm utilizing right now, the King Slime, Freya, and Elsa. Elsa has a combination of these two damage reduction stats, basic attack damage reduction. We have a total of roughly 65% on Elsa. On Freya, I got kind of lucky with this. I got triple skill damage reduction. Again, I just kept building up my pets for build growth events. We had one recently. Actually, I think it's still in the game right now. So I just do this around the build growth events so I can actually complete the entire tree here. But triple skill damage reduction from Elsa, or from Freya rather, that's going to get me access to roughly about 98%, 99% damage reduction from skill damage reduction. That is amazing. And then we have the Slime King here that I have, which has double basic attack damage reduction. Basic attack damage reduction, in my opinion, when you're progressing, is just a little bit stronger than skill damage reduction. Those are the two most common forms of damage in chapter, because a lot of the times your enemy monsters will hit you. That's a basic attack. And then they have all sorts of skills that they potentially will use. That's the skill damage. There's also a lot of damage coming from rage hits, and that can usually one-shot you, and that's why CC comes in handy. But at least you're not getting one-shot by the basic attacks that they're dealing to you. Okay, so I've got two different pets with massive amounts of basic attack damage reduction, and then one pet with a bunch of skill damage reduction. Well, how do I know when to stop, and how do I know to like min-max? What am I looking for really in those two skills? Well, if we look at our stats here, what we want is for chapter 1 to 80, you're going to be looking at 75% as the maximum reduction. That is the maximum reduction you can have. That after that point, any additional basic attack or skill damage reduction that you can get does not actually have any effect of you increasing your tankiness. For chapters 81 to 140, you will need your chapter level plus 15%. So for example, if you are looking at, and this is, again, I am taking a lot of this information from the Discord, and actually I'll probably pop this up on screen here off just to the side while I'm talking about this. You're looking at chapter 127 will require 142% reduction. That's just chapter 127 plus 15%. Chapter 130 is going to be, 145. It's just kind of that chapter plus 15%. For chapters 141 to 180, you're going to need a lot more. It's actually a little bit more of a complicated formula, and I will just let you guys kind of read through it there, because I think talking about it doesn't actually provide you any guidance. But basically, you need a lot more damage reduction in order for you to really maximize your tankiness in these situations. Okay. So if I'm in those chapters, I want to cap out damage reduction. That gives you a solid goal to attain, and building your pets around it's going to be very important. Obviously, in my situation, I haven't pushed stages, because usually what I do is I wait for the Cappy Gotcha to push stages so that I can do my what's it called, the challenge 5 main story stages at a time, and not use up any energy. But I should push the stage a lot longer. It just takes so long that I haven't actually sat down to do it. But you should be pushing this as much as you can. And for me, I'm at 111, which means I need a total of 126% damage reduction in order for me to maximize. So if I look at my stats right now, well, I actually am over the basic attack damage reduction and then a little bit under on the skill damage reduction. So if ideally I was able to kind of evaluate my pets, well, I could definitely go ahead and take one of these pets and reduce my basic attack damage reduction and add a skill damage reduction, or ideally get better stats across the board so that I could cap out on both. Or, and this is really important, is find some other way of just overall damage reduction. There are various pieces of gear, but one of the greatest methods of getting it, and I have yet to acquire this pet here, but if you look over here at Toffee, it's going to give you a base 10% damage reduction. Remember, that's going to add 10% to skill damage and basic attack damage reduction. So this is another really excellent way just to get baseline damage reduction. And that one is definitely a very, very strong one to pick up. And it's one that I've been saving up for quite some time. But it's in the gold dark moon tickets. Of course, without complaining too much about the growth events, you guys know how that's been going. But that's going to give you your Toffee here. And ideally, with this build growth event ending, I should be getting it. I don't know. I'm rank 59. So as long as I stay under 100, I should be getting my Toffee here shortly. But that's a nice way to just get a baseline 10% damage reduction. That's going to stack up to your skill damage reduction and basic attack damage reduction, which is going to increase your overall tankiness. And that is going to really ramp up your overall ability to push stages. This is by far one of the most critical things to know about Capybara Go, and this also applies in general to a lot of other game modes. I'd say the biggest one that really kind of throws off the name of the game is PvP, especially in the early game. When you start reaching to the late game, we're talking like really pushing past 180 into the late stages where you are really diving into, and even when the hard mode comes out, into those late stages, oftentimes things just one-shot you. And if things are one-shotting you, then okay, abandon all hope of damage reduction, because damage reduction doesn't actually provide you enough damage reduction to prevent you from getting one-shot. And that's when you can go full on damage. You could be looking for things like skill damage and things like global attack and all that stuff to push harder and harder and harder in those stages. Because obviously I'm getting one shot, so why do I need damage reduction? Because it's not actually helping me to survive at least even a turn. So something to consider. Hopefully this helps, guys, especially for those of you pushing chapter stages. I'm promise I'm gonna hunker down here and push a bunch of chapter right now, but hopefully you all are going to do the same, and I'll see you all for the next one.